I am Dr. Kisha Tracy from English Studies, and I am also the chair of the General Education Program area here at Fitchburg State. I'm joined today by a great panel of our colleagues, Dr. Katy Covino from English Studies, Dr. Ben Levy from Mathematics, Dr. Ozge Ozay from Economics, History, and Political Science, and Dr. Kori Ryan from Behavioral Sciences. And we're just here today to chat a little bit with each other and with you about the student experience of coming to ask questions, of coming to office hours, of really kind of interacting with faculty on different levels. So we're going to have a series of questions here and just some discussion about each of those topics. So our first one, in your experience, firsthand or through research, or both, why do students feel uncomfortable coming to talk to us?
So I have some experience with that firsthand as an undergraduate. To me, early on in my undergraduate career, it was some combination of not being really aware of what office hours were and how to use them, feeling like I might be asking a stupid question or, therefore potentially wasting my professor's time, and just really just feeling shy. I distinctly remember first time you go to see a professor, sort of walking up to their office and forcing yourself through their door can be a challenging experience. But what I always think about is how once I realized what office hours were and how to use them, they became one of the most important things in my undergraduate education. I was a person who was always in office hours clarifying things I didn't understand. I always tried to work on homework early to ask those questions that I didn't know how to make progress with. And so when I think about where I started and how I ended up using them by the end of my career, trying to get students to where I ended up is really important to me, and sort of breaking the ice is something I try hard to do, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about in the next question.
I also have a first-hand experience for not being able to make to the office hours when I was a student, as an introvert myself, and actually graduating from high school that was kind of like very strict and authoritarian to this like liberal environment of college. It was very intimidating actually at first to understand how the institution itself worked. I think it might be one of the issues that our students might be experiencing as well. But just like Dr. Levy, I think if you sort of bear the brunt and just do it for the first time, it is going to ease your anxiety, and it is going to get easier and easier as everything with anxiety, practice sort of like helps. But yeah, in my case too, I think it was the strangeness of the institution, not being able to understand how it works, and just being an introvert, it is kind of like hard to just do it for the first time, especially.
I think one thing I've found with some of my students is that if they're feeling intimidated about going to office hours, and they're also struggling in the class, or they have a question, the combination of anxiety, personal anxiety, and not knowing the system, and also that coupled with, I don't know what I'm doing in the class. So those two things together can make it hard to be vulnerable enough to go to the office hour and to ask the question and to say out loud, I'm having trouble with this, or, I have a question about that. So I think really overcoming both the institutional anxiety and also some anxiety related to assignments in English, particularly for first-year students I found, or students whose families don't have experience with this college system. I think that those are some reasons why students might be uncomfortable. And I know we'll get to it in further questions, but really normalizing the experience of going to office hours, or even requiring that students go to office hours, so then it's across the board, everybody's going, and it's a normal thing that everybody's doing. I think that can help sort of bridge those two areas of anxiety, both the institutional anxiety and the subject area anxiety.
I think there are two additional pieces that I'd like to add to what my colleagues have said already, which are, there's a whole host of reasons why students might be uncomfortable talking to us, but two that really stand out to me. One is that they have not had a good experience in the past reaching out to an educator. So they've been shamed, or they're fearful of reaching out again. So I think it's really important, and again, we'll get to this, to have that welcoming environment from day one, and make very clear that yes, we're here not to shame you, but to help you along your educational journey. And my second point, I don't think a lot of folks are going to be super happy to hear, but it's really important. And having worked with, prior to working in academia, having to work with folks who have been involved in the criminal justice system, I always go back to the fact that respect is earned. And we have a lot of letters after our names usually, and that may mean it's very intimidating, or it may mean really nothing to a student. The respect comes from the comfort comes from the relationship that you build with your students. So I think that students might feel uncomfortable because we have so many letters after our names, and also just that we haven't necessarily earned their respect. We don't earn respect from anybody just by existing. We have to develop that relationship and that rapport. So I think that those are some really key elements to why our students are sometimes uncomfortable to us. And it's definitely something we teach in human services. You have one bad experience with a practitioner or provider, that's how they're going to see the rest of practitioners and providers. So we do in some ways speak for an entire field. And that's not to say sometimes we won't have bad interactions with students, they certainly happen, but that can set the stage for their future interactions with faculty.
Yeah, I think you've highlighted a lot of the reasons the students, I think the real key there is that there are multiple reasons. Even one student could feel uncomfortable about coming to talk to us. And so it may not be something as clear cut, right? Yeah. You've already started this, but we'll move into the next question. How can we meet students halfway and encourage them to communicate with us?
I can go first for this one. So I think, especially for first-year students, I see it to a certain extent my job to encourage them to come to my office hours or to approach me in general. I think one of the ways that I try to do it, I need to come up with a different plan to make it like staggering, because I have 100 students and it's kind of like hard to require all students to come to my office hours like in the very first week, but just requiring them and just in general forming giving them a sense of community in the class just from the very first day, I think helps them. Like it's sort of like signals that you're open and you're approachable for them to communicate with you. Also, I found that like in the syllabus, if you cite these resources about the counseling services or the food pantry and so on, I think then they can actually, it's sort of like signals them again that, you're open to, for them to approach you about, other situations that are coming up in their life that is actually interfering with their success with their studies. So I think that helps as well. It is obviously harder for the online asynchronous courses, but I still try to form some sort of like genuine connection with the students. I ask them to, for example, post a picture that is of importance to them and so on, so that once you have that like genuine connection, I think it is easier for them to approach you at the end. So I try to do that throughout the semester as well with other students to even after the class for 5 minutes or with email, sort of like one-on-one genuine sort of like connection even for 5 minutes. So I think that makes you more approachable, and it seems to be working for my students.
So for some of my classes, the students will have independent work time to work on writing or to work on an assessment or to collaborate, because I know that they're both free during that period of our class. So if there's ever independent class time or aspects of class time that are independent, I always encourage them to use office hours during that time or to come to my office during that time. I can give a couple of specific examples. When students are doing the community-facing independent research project and writing one, I require them to visit my class during the office hour or during the class time, even though it's supposed to be independent. It's just a check-in. It's like a soft check-in. And I found just that little check-in can help the freshmen be successful on that assessment. So I'm moving them towards independent work, but I'm requiring just that soft check-in. And once they know where your office is, and once they know that you're accessible, then they'll come other times that aren't required, I found. Or in children's literature, when they're doing an alternative assessment where they have to sort of do a creative take to display their progress, mastery, and growth in sort of an artistic way. My classroom is full of, my office is full of examples of those kinds of pieces. So making them all come and all sort of take a gallery look around the office. So I think office hours are great if you want students to come to your class at other times as well. Supporting them during independent assessments is a good way to get them into your office and also to support them on their way to success.
Go ahead, Dr. Levy.
Thanks. I think they're all great ideas. I just wanted to add one additional thing. So getting students in your office the first time is really important, and I also require it and try to get them in there. But I just was going to emphasize once you have someone in there, really making it a positive experience, so that they do it again is really important. And just as a very quick story, when I was in graduate school, again, I just talked about how I thought office hours were really important as an undergrad, but my first year in grad school was in a really hard class. And I was still feeling, ashamed about getting help from the professor. And I went and I talked to him, and I never forget what he said. He said, he helped me, and he said, as I was leaving, he said, listen, I've seen students like you before who are struggling with this class, and I've seen them get PhDs. You need to come back and ask questions. Make sure I see you. Don't make this be the last time I see you in the office. And I literally say that I don't tell students about the PhD part, but I literally, the first time I'll say, don't let this be the last time I see you in here. Make sure you come back. Not just, you can come back, but I want to see you in the office again. And I've had success with that in general.
I think I just want to add a couple of thoughts. And one is that sometimes we think we're meeting students halfway, and we're really expecting the students, I think, to take on the bulk of the work. So the more we can be proactive to signal that we're open to discussion. And I think the way that we can do that is through things like universal design. So I just want to give a little bit of plug for things like universal design and trauma-informed teaching. So it's a little more work up front, but it ends up really rewarding, not just the students, but I think faculty. It signals to them that you understand their experiences and you're willing to hear them and listen to them. And I think we're hearing that in the stories that we're sharing as well, as our fears of office hours and crying in office hours, and having had professors say, hey, hang in there, you can do this, don't let this deter you. That all is supportive, and it really puts the student first. So meeting students halfway is putting in a little bit of that extra effort to make sure that your classroom is inviting and your office hours are inviting, and that may be even signaling things like putting your pronouns into Zoom, or hanging things on your door that say that you're an affirming educator, for a variety of social and cultural identities. And the more that we can do that, the more students are going to feel comfortable that we're just like them, because they don't hear these stories necessarily. They see us walk into a classroom with all of our letters, give a lecture seemingly like with no preparation, because they don't see that part. So the more that we can comfortably let them see about the process, and to create those pipelines, I think the better off our connections with students will be.
I really love how almost all of you, I think all of you made the word signal, right? I think signaling to students and kind of consistently signaling to students across the semester in a variety of ways is very important. Things like use of pronouns, things like or putting your pronouns onto your syllabus or wherever. The things like Ozge was saying about the putting resources, well-being resources onto your syllabus, or providing those before they're needed to your students or before they're asked. I think these are very important things that do signal to students that you are willing to help. And I think that's important. I just want to put a plug in here too for the Faculty Academy that's working with the Real Talk pedagogy, and there'll be cohorts every year that are going to start that on campus. Which really helps with this as well. It's about creating that connection and creating that kind of real moment with students. So just a plug for a project that the university is working on. Our third question, how are office hours understood or misunderstood?
So I'm happy to take a first stab at that one. So I think office hours are sometimes understood too finitely. I mean, in too small a way. So if students want to come and talk about an assignment or an assessment or something related to the course, like that is sort of an everyday understanding of what office hours are. But I think that all of us here have expressed that we all view office hours more broadly, and I think that's how office hours should be understood and practiced. So I'm happy to have students come to visit about other things as well. At the end of the day, to piggyback on what Dr. Ryan said, the strongest relationship that we can have with our students is one built on trust, right? And that's an ongoing, constant thing. You don't decide you trust someone and you're set for forever, right? Trust has to be practiced, and the support has to be practiced. So if I want students to know that they can take us all up on our offer of support, and that I want them to trust that they're welcome in our offices. I want them to always feel welcome. I feel like they'll not only do better in our classes, but I feel like the relationship, and I know that my colleagues were talking about ongoing work with our students, seeing our students as our future peers, that nurturing of future colleagues, that's just, it's higher confidence, and it's deeper comfort, and it's lasting trust. This relationship that we're building, it's just a win-win across the board if you conceive of office hours in a larger, more holistic way.
I just want to Dr. Covino is 100% spot on. We want to give our students agency, right? We want them to be able to advocate for themselves, and we have to remember that we have to walk before we can run. And some of us aren't particularly great at advocating for ourselves either. So we have to remember our students are learning. And I think sometimes office hours, or really any communication with students, we get a little bit stuck in the weeds. So we have to kind of prioritize what the most important thing is. Is it, making sure that they address us in the right way, or is it the fact that we want to acknowledge that they took the effort to come and contact with us? So we want to make sure that they're ready for the big time, so to speak, as future colleagues. But is that the thing that we want to focus on in our first meeting with them? It may be, hey, just so you know, we've been kind of interacting and I'm okay with X, Y, and Z, but culturally, some folks might want to be referred to as X and A, B, C instead. So it's just thinking about prioritizing what our students' needs are, not just in the classroom, but when we're interacting with them. And I think that goes a really long way towards helping students feel comfortable in using that time and that space. Because I really think a lot of them don't recognize that the office hours are there for them, and for a variety of reasons.
Yes, it has been my experience the students don't really know what an office hour is. And I think we need to recognize that as the faculty, that we, and Ben alluded to this, the idea that, at one point in time, we probably didn't know what an office hour was for or what we were supposed to do when we got there. And so I think it's important for us to again, signal to the students that we understand that and to be able to communicate that. And I know Kori has talked, we've talked about this before, that it should be student hours. And I want to emphasize that I think that's a great idea. Maybe we should rename them to student hours instead of office hours, because I think that may actually get more across of what we actually want to say. Excellent. I want to thank the panel for taking the time today to provide this discussion and these thoughts. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.